In 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene, we learn that life's battles are often fought within. Arrogance can lead to defeat, while patience can bring unexpected victory. Let me share 2 stories that reveal how the greatest struggles aren't always on the battlefield, but in our minds. Once upon a time, in an ancient land, there was a legendary general named Zan. His name echoed across the kingdoms, feared and revered by all. Zan had never tasted defeat. He was a master strategist, able to anticipate his enemies' moves before they even realized them. His armies were like a storm sweeping across the battlefield, relentless and powerful. With each victory, his confidence grew, and he came to believe that no force on earth could defeat him. His soldiers followed him with unwavering loyalty, knowing that under his command they were invincible. But confidence is a delicate thing, a double-edged sword. Over time, Zan's assurance in his own invincibility started to blind him. He stopped analyzing his enemies as deeply as he once had. He began to ignore small details, believing they were beneath his notice. His success had become his downfall, though he did not see it yet. One day, Zan decided to wage war against a vast and powerful empire. He had heard whispers of their strength, but in his mind, they were no match for him. Without the careful planning that had once been his hallmark, Zan led his forces into battle. His men fought valiantly, but the empire had anticipated his every move. The battlefield, which had always been Zan's domain, now became his undoing. In the midst of the chaos, Zan realized his mistake. The Empire's forces encircled his army, exploiting a weakness that Zan had dismissed as insignificant. His soldiers, seeing their commander falter for the first time, lost their morale. What had been a mighty force was now in disarray. As Zan stood in the heart of the battle, watching his empire crumble around him, he understood the cruel lesson of his defeat. His arrogance had blinded him to the most basic truth: no one is invincible. Zan's downfall was not the result of an external enemy, but of an internal one. His confidence had turned into hubris, a poison that clouded his judgment. His belief in his own power had grown so large that it left no room for doubt, no space for humility. And it was in that moment of pride that he lost everything. Zan walked away from the battlefield a broken man, no longer the great general he once was. He had been defeated not by the strength of his enemy, but by the blindness of his own arrogance. The lesson was clear. Those who believe they are invulnerable are the easiest to defeat. The moment you stop paying attention to the small things, the details that seem insignificant, is the moment you open yourself to failure. In another part of the world, far from the bloodied battlefields, there was a king. This king was old and wise, and unlike most rulers, he had never waged war. He ruled a small but prosperous kingdom on the edge of a vast forest. His neighbors were strong and often embroiled in conflict, but the king's land was peaceful. He had no need for armies or battles, for his strength lay not in his force, but in his wisdom. Many questioned the king's approach. How could a ruler survive without going to war, without showing his strength on the battlefield? But the king knew a deeper truth about power. He understood that true strength often comes from the ability to wait, to be patient, and to act only when necessary. One day, a fierce and brutal warlord from a neighboring land sent a message to the king. This warlord, known for his conquests and merciless tactics, demanded that the king surrender his kingdom. The king's advisors panicked. They urged him to prepare for war, to call upon his allies and defend his realm. But the king remained calm. Instead of mobilizing his forces, the king did nothing. He did not send an army to confront the warlord, nor did he raise defenses around his borders. Days passed, and the tension in the kingdom grew. The people feared that the warlord's armies would soon arrive, bringing death and destruction with them. But the warlord did not come. Weeks passed, and still there was no sign of an attack. Eventually, word reached the king that the warlord had decided to turn his attention elsewhere. Another kingdom, one that had been eager for battle, had challenged the warlord's forces, and he had chosen to fight there instead. The king's patience had paid off. He had avoided a war not through strength of arms, but through the wisdom of inaction. By not reacting, by not allowing fear or pride to dictate his choices, he had outmaneuvered his enemy without lifting a finger. His kingdom remained safe, his people untouched by the horrors of battle. The psychological lesson here is subtle but profound. The king understood that not every challenge must be met head-on. In life, as in war, there are times when the best action is no action at all. By stepping back, by refusing to engage in a fight that could lead to unnecessary destruction, the king preserved his strength and avoided disaster. Both stories, though set in different worlds, reveal the same truth. The greatest battles are often fought within. General Zan's downfall was his failure to see that his greatest enemy was his own arrogance. The king's success came from understanding that wisdom and patience can be more powerful than any army. In the end, both figures teach us that in life we must be strategic not only in how we engage with others, but in how we engage with ourselves. Our minds can be our greatest ally or our greatest enemy. Success often hinges not on raw power or force, but on the ability to see the world and ourselves with clarity. The moment we lose sight of this is the moment we invite defeat. The battlefield of the mind is vast and treacherous, and only those who learn to navigate it with both humility and wisdom can hope to emerge victorious. The tales of the general and the king are a reminder that power, whether in war, life, or the mind, is not about domination. It is about understanding when to act and when to step back, when to fight and when to wait. Those who rush blindly forward, fueled by pride or fear, often find themselves undone by forces they could have easily avoided. But those who see the bigger picture, who understand that not every battle is worth fighting, are the ones who truly master the art of war and the art of life.